Alright, so this week saw not only the launch of Agatha All Along, but the first episode of the new HBO show that continues the Reeves-averse or the Batmaniverse or Battinsoniverse or whatever you want to call it. The show, The Penguin. And the question is it good? And I'll say this real quick. I really liked The Batman. I think it was great. Obviously, some decisions that I didn't love, but overall, I think the movie was excellent and like one of the best of that year. I love Colin Farrell in general. I think Colin Farrell is such an underrated actor. And I don't mean underrated, like, yeah, he's been nominated for a lot of Oscars. So of course he can't be that underrated, but underrated for me, honestly. It's like, I didn't know that he's probably like one of my favorites, one of those guys that you find out is in a thing and you go, oh, so that's going to be interesting. And maybe it's just the connection with the Banshees and like the McDonough plays. And now this is, but honestly, I was one of those people who was always like, why are we even doing this? Why is he the Penguin? Why does he have to put on lots and lots of makeup and prosthetics and stuff to play a guy that other people just look like? Paul Giamatti is alive. He's not dead. As of now, as of recording this, as of making the Batman 1, he is very much alive. And he could very much have been the Penguin. That being said, I loved the Penguin in Matt Reeves' Batman. Easily my favorite part of the movie. He was used very well. He showed up a little bit. He had his really big moments, but he didn't do too much. He had a lot of personality. There was clearly more going on with this guy, but like I think we got the exact perfect amount of him in a movie like that that's not about him. So I was a little curious after The Batman is a big success, and it's one of the things that Zaslav says is like, this is why we make these movies, is because they make a lot of money if they're really good, and like, look at The Batman, so we're not going to stop doing that. I was very excited for The Batman too, but these spin-off shows, I was very like, but wait, do we need these? And like, is this going to work? Is the balance not going to get thrown off a little bit? Is he going to be annoying? And maybe like, obviously it's going to be annoying, but is he going to be too annoying for it to be fun? And is there enough to his character? Are we able to build an interesting backstory for this character? And then, is this going to intersect with the Batman? Is this going to become like its own little corner of the Batman? Or is it going to come right into the next one? All those questions. So I was excited for this show because it had one of my favorite guys in it, doing one of my favorite characters he's ever done. But I could see how it could fail. So I am happy to say that The Penguin is like my new favorite show. I think it is so entertaining. It is so good at what it's doing. Okay. I'm gonna be very, very like broad here in terms of like my praise. I'm going to talk about a lot of stuff. I'm not going to spoil it because there's really not too much to spoil, especially since we've only seen the first episode, which is called After Hours. I think there's definitely stuff that could be spoiled, but I don't think we really get much here that wasn't in the trailer. In fact, it feels like a lot of the trailer was stuff from this episode, so it does make me like, ooh, what's the rest of this? But okay, so right off the bat, Colin Farrell is incredible. This is such a weird little character, and he feels so strange, especially in the beginning where he's breaking through the safe and he gets caught. He tries to talk his way out of it to the guy from Marvelous Miss Maisel. I was like, very okay, yeah, that's what he is. I get it. And he told the story about the mobster who everybody loved, and they threw a parade for him. And you go like, oh, okay, I see. That's what this guy's all about. And then I'll say this is when the Penguin won me. It's very early in the episode. The Penguin has found a child. The child, we will learn, is named Victor Aguilar. And he is a Gotham City kid living, not like living on the street. Well, we don't know exactly what his home life is like, I don't think. But, he's trying to steal from the Penguin. The Penguin, like, threatens him. And the kid is able to talk his way out of it, very much like the Penguin. But also he has some sort of speech issue. So the Penguin is able to see a little bit of himself in this person who does not fit in exactly right, like probably got bullied, all that stuff. I liked that. That was good. And he threatens the kid with a gun. But the kid says, oh, but I got ambition. I want to be somebody. And again, you see the wheels turning, and the Penguin is like, oh, this is a little bit like me. I like this kid. So then he relents and he's like, all right, I'm not going to kill you, but you have to work for me for a little bit. And then with the tension being over, like he doesn't have to execute this kid anymore, he's like, I feel better. Do you feel better? This feels good. And then he leaves. And there's something about that interaction that I think really felt new to me and felt real in a way that you would not expect the Penguin show to feel. And again, we get a little of this in the Batman. He's like a showman. He likes to schmooze and talk to people. But all of these small things that we get from this performance, the way that he speaks, the way that he walks, like the walking, sure, but just the way that he says hi to characters, the way that in between like mob assassinations or whatever, the penguin gets a sandwich and complains about the amount of food on his sandwich. Like, he feels so real. And because of that, it is so strange how much I am rooting for the penguin. I think part of it comes from the fact that he is very clearly set up in this story as an underdog. And that is something that is different about the penguin. He's not Oswald Cobblepot in here. He's Oswald Cobb, because Cobblepot sounds like old money. Although I do think like Cobblepot as a name, like they told us it's an old money name. But like those words are not fancy words. He's not Mr. Diamond Sparkle or something. Cobble is a word that literally means like to put a bunch of things kind of shoddily together, and a pot is like, it just, I don't know. The thing with these names, they all sound a little silly, but if you contextualize them, it isn't silly anymore. It just sounds normal. Basically, I think they could have called him Cobblepot and that would have been fine. The more we learn about this guy, the more personality he has, the more he's remembering things from the old neighborhood, listening to music, watching TV. He's just such a specific guy and he feels so complicated. Like, obviously he's doing mafia stuff and like selling drugs and killing people and profiting off of that industry. So you can't help but feel like you dislike him a little bit. But like every time the penguin gets a chance in this show to be nice, because this character so wants to be loved, he always tries to be a little friendly or a little relatable. I loved it. I think it's so good. It's so clear what they're going for too, because it's the penguin, right? Like we all know from the cartoons or like Burgess Meredith or Danny DeVito, like there've been a lot of takes on the penguin, and I haven't seen Gotham, but I know that is another penguin. But first of all, I love the idea that this is the first penguin from New Jersey, or at least that feels like he's from New Jersey, because canonically Gotham City is in New Jersey. It's not like it's pretty much where like it seems like Jersey City is, or like Bayonne or that area. But like I think it's fun how the world of Batman is frequently peppered with gangster mobster types. But at least to me, they feel like more of a Chicago gangster sort of thing. And I don't know if the distinction really matters, but these guys, Oz is so New Jersey. And the Falcone family, which we will talk about, so New Jersey. Like, I don't think everybody has to feel like they're from New Jersey. Obviously, the Maroney family is led by a character played by Clancy Brown, so he doesn't do an accent or anything. He just sounds cool like he always does and everything. But I love that this doesn't just feel like fake gangsters. That being said, you can also tell that a lot of what's coming from the Penguin is very heavily inspired by The Sopranos. And I love that. And I've only watched one episode of The Sopranos. I watched the pilot because I wanted to see it, but it's only something I started recently, and like I haven't had time to watch it yet. And I could feel the Tony Soprano in Oz in the beginning of this show, where he wants to be loved, wants to be a friendly gangster who everyone enjoys hanging out with, and he's seeing the world kind of change in front of him, pass him by, doesn't know his place in it. And this is my very, very like light read on Tony Soprano. However, you're watching and you're like, oh yeah, this is a little bit like that. And then Oz goes to his mother's house and you're like, oh yeah, that happens in the Sopranos pilot. Pretty much exactly this. Like, it's not the same situation, but like that is right out of the playbook. I've heard this described as a Scarface-inspired story, which I totally see, because again, he's a self-made man trying to build himself up in this world of organized crime. Sure, there's no way that a story about a mobster from New Jersey is not going to feel like a Sopranos thing, but it's just crazy to me how this character is both the Penguin and Tony Soprano, and also I like him. And like I'm rooting for him, and it's just a really masterful reintroduction, I guess, to this character, giving us this look at what he actually wants and why the world is not going to give him that, why he believes he has to take it, why he's got this weird chip on his shoulder, and how he interacts with all these different people, including someone who he kind of sees as himself. Now, I will say, I wasn't excited about the kid. Not that I thought the actor was bad or anything. Like, when I saw that this was where the show was going, I was just like, why? The Penguin didn't have a sidekick, and like, I assume he has other mobsters, so why is he gonna like get a little friend? And I totally get it now. I think the kid is good. The kid is probably like, quite an adult, but the actor's name is Renzi Feliz, which people might recognize from his role in The Runaways, where he played like the main character of that show, which like I did not make that connection yet. I do think there's a big, like, the glasses go a long way to kind of making a person look like almost like a completely different person. I wish there was an example of that in popular culture, but I just can't think of one. But I think he did a great job in this first episode. I think his reactions were great. I liked the chemistry between him and Penguin. It just felt very natural. And yeah, that part of the show, maybe when this whole thing started, like when we saw the first trailer, was the part that I was a little bit concerned with, and totally works. Like, I have no problem with it. On the other side of the coin, when I watched the trailer, the character I was most excited for is Sophia Falcone, played by Kristen Milotti, an actor who I think is really funny, I really like. And I was right to like that character and get excited for her because she is also incredible. And she is from New Jersey, by the way. She's from Cherry Hill. So her, Italian New Jersey character is not something completely invented by a man from Ireland, which, kudos, way to go, Colin Farrell, because what you're doing is great. But this does feel very authentic. There was at least one moment, although I think this happened twice, where I was watching this with Hannah, and Kristen Milotti gives Penguin a look. It's a very specific look at the end of their conversation in the restaurant, I believe, and we both went, whoa. And even I'd already seen it before, but I was like, man, that does hit. I think part of it is the score. The violin arrangement that they give Sophia is excellent. Oh, hold on, guys. I just realized something. The music in the show, at least the first episode from what I saw, is by a musician I had not heard of specifically, but when I saw their name, my eyes popped out like a cartoon character. Mick Giacchino, Michael Giacchino's son. People that don't know Michael Giacchino, one of my favorite, and I think a lot of people's favorite, one of their favorite working composers. People know them from Incredibles. I would say is probably their most well-known soundtrack. They did do The Batman, and they did a couple of other big Marvel things recently. I mean, my favorite thing they've ever done was Speed Racer. I love the Speed Racer soundtrack, and I think it's wonderful. They did the Fantastic Four score that sounds incredible, and we've only heard the one song. I did not know that Mike had a kid, and his name is Mick, and he apparently worked on that Muppets Mayhem show, and I think he's doing great. There is, I don't know if it's nature or nurture, but there's something going on in that house that is teaching the Giacchino family to write really great scores. I think I think the music's fantastic. What else? I think it looks like a movie. It feels like, it does not feel like a TV show. In that same way that other shows that I like, very much like your Arrows or whatever, felt like TV shows, looked like TV shows. This, obviously the aspect ratio is what you'd expect from a TV show, but I do think that the performances and the cinematography make it feel like something I'd be fine with seeing in a theater. What else? Other supporting characters are good. Like everybody else we've seen I've liked, but I thought I would like this. I had a feeling because I enjoyed the Penguin so much, and like Matt Reeves has not let me down. I was like, this will probably be good. And you know what? It's the same thing as Agatha. Speaking of the two of them right here, I have Oz and Agatha, whatever, action figures, and I didn't even buy either of them for this. I just had them because I like those characters. But like, it's the same thing with Agatha, where people ask, like, why are we making a spinoff about Agatha Harkness? And like, why are we making a thing about the Penguin? And it's like, because they had a really good idea and a really cool actor, and they pitched that to the studio, and the studio, maybe even against their will or like not wanting to make that, I'm sure the studio was like, no, just make Batman as quickly as you can. And Matt Reeves is producing this, he didn't like direct it, but I'm sure that the studio was just like, you know what, this is really good though, so we're gonna have to make this. Like, this is going to rock. And well, I think Agatha is good, and I enjoy Agatha. It's not the kind of thing that I think I would tell someone who doesn't already kind of enjoy that stuff to watch. If you don't like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and you don't like witches and stuff, there's probably not a whole lot for you there. But that being said, Penguin, I think I could make anybody watch, and I'd be like, you're gonna like it. It's not something for everybody, and there's definitely parts of it that are, graphic in a lot of different ways, but it is so good. I hope Colin Farrell gets the Emmy for this. Like, I saw in an interview, it was like, I hated having the makeup on. And there were times when I was just like losing my mind. And I also saw him on like, I don't know, Seth Meyers or something saying like, oh yeah, it was very fun in the morning. We'd wake up and do and by the way, I'm half Irish, so I can do a bad Irish accent and it's okay. But yeah, it's like, oh, we woke up and we hung out for 3 hours in the makeup chair and it was wonderful. I know it's bad, but like when he says that, every time he says that, it's like, Paul Giamatti is alive. We could just get him. We can get any amount of schlubby penguin looking guys that I'm sure would love to take this spot. But it's like, if he's going to put in a performance that's that good and that unusual and like specific and likable and unlikable, but like charismatic. I guess put him in the makeup. I'm sorry, Colin, you got to keep doing it because you're really good. Like, I would watch 10 seasons of this, and I hope he's in the Batman movie. I will say, it seems like this is borrowing a lot from The Long Halloween, which every Batman thing borrows from to some extent, but this has the Falcone-Maroni power struggle, all of that, and that seems like that's going to be a central plot point here. I'd be curious, because for the Nando V Movies Patron Book Club this month, we read Batman Earth 1, which I'd never read before, and a lot of it was very similar to the Batman. There were just some moments where you're like, oh, that's kind of what this is going for, and there were some characters that you saw redesigned for the first time there that would look similar in the Batman. But that being said, the Penguin in it was very different. He did not really bear any similarities to good old Oscob over here. However, in Earth 1, spoiler, I guess, for something that you find out about halfway through, the Penguin is the mayor. I would not be surprised if this season ends not with him being the mayor, but with like that as his ambition. Because I've also heard this character, Antonio from the group, compared him to Wilson Fisk, which I also think is another great example. And I do think it's Scarface, it's Wilson Fisk, and it's Tony Soprano. But Wilson Fisk in Daredevil Comics famously runs for and wins mayor of New York very recently. I don't think he would make sense. Like, the Penguin wouldn't make sense as the mayor of all of Gotham City, but like, I don't know. I want this guy to win. And I did not expect to feel this way about the show. One minor nitpicky thing that I want to say, I didn't mind the fallout from the Batman, like that the town is flooded and, you know, people are like, oh, I hate that Riddler guy from earlier. But I do think the way that they explain what has happened to different parts of Gotham, I find kind of preposterous. As a person who lives close enough to New York to understand this all in terms of what the New York version of this would be. Because what happened was, in the movie, if I remember correctly, the Riddler took out a bunch of levees on the seawall or whatever of Gotham, specifically to flood Madison Square Garden, because that would be the place where everybody would go and that would cause the most damage, and also it was where the politician was. That all made sense to me in that show, but then I would have to assume then that the entire city was underwater, like a lot. Because every time we saw it, we saw like the Madison Square Garden or, you know, the viaduct or whatever, those like landmarks of Gotham. I know I'm taking this too seriously and literally, but when I see it, I can't not go like, that's where rich people live. There are no middle class people living in Manhattan, a stone's throw away from Madison Square Garden. They say the cleanup in the suburbs has been good. So I'm like, wait, the suburbs? Like Jersey or like Brooklyn? That's so far from the garden. Like, how did they also get the part of the city where the poor people live? And I get that must mean, because if the Madison Square Garden was there and that was the target, you would assume most of the flooding would have happened there. And even the flooding that would have had to take place to get to there would have passed over real estate that was close enough to the Madison Square Garden that it would be valuable. And I'm not trying to nitpick this. I'm just saying I'd love to see a map of Gotham and see where it flooded, because in my head, what happened is Manhattan flooded, specifically like, you know, 30th Street, whatever, because they wanted to get Madison Square Garden. They got all the area around that. But the pictures that they use and the way that they describe it, it feels like the part that is still flooded and still like has a lot of water damage is like, I don't know, Bed-Stuy or something in Brooklyn. And then the part that doesn't have water damage is like, I don't know, Fort Lee in New Jersey. So I want to have sympathy for the residents of Gotham in this moment, but I see that clip and go, well, yeah, they didn't get flooding there. That's residential area. The Madison Square Garden flooded. Unless he flooded the entire like state, you would not get those guys. But anyway, that's just me. But again, this is a little thing because I really appreciate how New Jersey and New York this show feels. But because of that, I just can't get over the way that it seems like Gotham is laid out and where people live. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you could show me a map of places where this would make sense. I don't know. Oh, I wasn't even looking for like Easter eggs and stuff, but I will say the two that I found fun. One, obviously the kid Victor is kind of like Jason Todd because he steals the hubcaps off of the Penguin mobile, I guess. And also Penguin is going to kill him with a crowbar for a second. That doesn't, pan out. But like he's got a little bit of Jason Todd in him. That seems like it. I don't think there were any other similar moments, but that's interesting. Another thing that's interesting, the woman that the Penguin goes to see to set up his alibi, I didn't know who this actor was, so I looked it up. Their name is Carmen Ejogo, but they play a character named Eve Carlo with a K. So as a Batman fan, I can't see that and not say, oh, that's Clayface's name usually. Basil Carlo, one of the Clayfaces at least. And now I'm kind of like, maybe he is going to be in the Batman too, because Clayface as a character is the other character that has bounced around a lot in terms of characters that maybe are getting a show or a spin-off movie or something. A lot of it because apparently some of the GCPD stuff got rolled into this show, and the Arkham stuff that they wanted to do, they were going to make an Arkham show, but then that apparently got rolled into something else, maybe the Batman 2 or maybe a different show. But that does make me wonder, like, oh, maybe this is them kind of hinting that Clayface is coming eventually. That being said, I'm fine with just Maronis and Falcones because of how much I really enjoy watching all these actors, and specifically Penguin, which I can't believe, because it's just a really, really, really good show. So should everybody watch it? Probably not everybody. I don't know. Don't show it to like a baby. Well, a baby probably wouldn't really track all of this stuff. Don't show it to someone between the ages of 3 and 17, but probably a little young. I don't know. I'm not in charge of children. I don't know how old the child would be, because I'm sure this is like rated R, but it's like, would you want to let a 16-year-old watch it? Because it's like, it's really good. But yeah, they do show, a boob or something. I don't know. But everybody else, especially if you like Sopranos or Daredevil, and especially if you like the Batman, watch Penguin, because it's really, really good. So that's all. Thank you. Subscribe, all that stuff. I'll see you guys in the future. Goodbye.